Hello, everyone. Well, I'm super excited to be here. It's a huge honor to be presenting at the summit. Last year was my first summit where I met Maria, and it was super inspiring. So I'm excited to share a little bit about what we're doing at Autodesk with GraphQL, but actually, well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an experienced design architect at Autodesk. And what that means, it's just like a fancy term for an experience designer or a user experience designer or an XD or a UX or whatever you call those in your respective organizations. I'm essentially a designer, and I'm supposed to be designing those pointy, clicky things that you look at. But I'm actually working with a lot of API teams. So I've kind of snuck into the summit as pretending to be an engineer. But today we're actually going to be talking about the touchy-feely product thinking and design stuff that we're doing at Autodesk with our APIs. Okay, let's see if I get this to work. Oh, great. This is my first slide that I'm going to show you today. Because I work at a big enterprise company, I'm obligated to show you this. So I am going to quickly, in one breath, summarize a couple points because I have to. My legal department demands it. So some of the statements that you'll hear today will be forward-looking statements regarding planned or future development for our existing or future products and services, and statements regarding potentially some strategic priorities. These statements are not intended to be a promise or a guarantee of business results or future availability of products, services, features, but they're merely some ideas that we have based on our current plans. Don't feed me after midnight. We're done. We're moving on. Okay. So today, I'm going to walk through a couple things. First, I'm going to start with a little background on Autodesk and Autodesk Platform Services, I feel like context is important, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to dive into us bringing some experience design practices into our API design process and what that looks like, so we'll go through that. I'll take you through a tour of a very high-level version of this process. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about maybe how you can bring some of these sort of product thinking, experiential practices into your own organization. So with that, little background on what Autodesk even is. How many of you have heard of something called Revit? Oh, I know you have. Fusion 360? Couple more hands. Maya? Oh, more hands. Oh, that's very exciting. I'll tell the Maya team. AutoCAD. Okay, yeah, AutoCAD wins. AutoCAD is 40 years old. That's our first software product that we created 40 years ago. We're like a dinosaur of software companies. But our customers use these products to innovate and solve challenges big and small, from early design through manufacturing, construction, production, and beyond. We serve 3 industries with our design products. We serve architecture, engineering, and construction. Sometimes we call that AEC because it's a mouthful. Manufacturing and design, and media and entertainment. And our products are used to design the buildings around you, the experiences that immerse you, and your favorite product you might be holding in your hand right now and texting people with. So it's no fun to talk about what Autodesk does. I'm going to show you a little sizzle reel. I hope the audio works. We'll see if the audio works. Oh, it does. Very excited. Okay. Okay. It's so cool when you have media and entertainment as part of your company, you get a sizzle reel, and it's really fun to show. As you can see, our products are used to design everything, right? Big buildings, spaceships in movies, video games, and more. Things like this stadium, for example, will be designed using our software. Now, this is a stadium, I think it's 40,000 seats. So just imagine you have a 1,000-seat stadium that you're designing in 3D, and you want to make some changes to the shape of that stadium. You want to maybe move the field around a little bit. Imagine having to position each of those 40,000 seats. Our customers don't do that. They use our APIs. They're super advanced, and they do things like this all the time. They're very, very smart folks who use our products and APIs to generate immense amounts of data. So think about the complex we're in right now. I like to think about, like, how many doors are in this facility, right? Those are the kinds of things our customers ask all the time. They want to do a calculation, a query across massive complex of buildings they're designing. Show us all the doorknobs. What are they? What model are they? What's the fire rating of all the windows in this building? We need to know because it's critical for our business, right? So our customers use our public-facing APIs, two of which are GraphQL, so we're very excited about that, and why I'm here, of course, to sift through gigabytes and gigabytes of data that contain geometry and metadata, and they need to do this to make their processes more efficient and gain insights. So we have what's called the Autodesk platform. It's a set of cloud APIs and application APIs that allow thousands of our customers to automate parts of their business, visualize data, sift through data, analyze it, become more efficient, automate a lot of processes. And we actually have a third-party ecosystem where people develop plugins and applications and extensions to our products and build whole new products on top of our platform. And it's really common for our customers to build things like this. This is a dashboard that actually shows a 3D viewer on the web that actually allows customers to query through all of this data and arrive at some insights about scheduling and costing and carbon footprint. This is super common. Our customers make these all the time. And like I said, if I haven't sent the message, our customers are very advanced. They have very, very smart engineers building these applications that are using our APIs. So in short, customers use Autodesk APIs to automate processes, to collaborate, and to gain a competitive edge over their own competitors through analysis and finding insights in their data. And we do that through a set of, I think I counted recently, 40 sets of APIs, maybe over 40 sets, because we've been making APIs for over 30 years. And some are cloud, some are not, and we'll often get some comments like this about our APIs. And, you know, that just happens because we have a lot of software, and it's been built over a long period of time, and I'm sure, how many of you relate to this either as a consumer or producer of APIs? Okay, oh yeah, okay, good. I'm not alone. So, you know, what we started to think about is, you know, how can we, when we started to introduce our GraphQL APIs, how can we change this? Because this is never fun. If at our own developer conferences, yeah, our ears get talked off. It's not always nice comments. So we started to think about how could we pull some approaches from the experience design world, right? The pointy, clicky designer side of things, and the product design part, and pull that into our API design process. So we started to think about, like, how do we design good products? How do we design products that people love? And so I'm going to take you through this process, very, very high level. This isn't, you won't be UX designers by the time you're done, but hopefully you'll get an idea. So we start by kind of mapping workflows. We talk with our customers. We really try to understand, like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do with a product? What kind of things are you trying to design? And we capture that in great detail. Every little detailed step of that process is really important to us. And then we take that feedback, those workflows, and we draw some sketches because we're designers. We can do that. And what the sketch really allows us to do is to get feedback early from customers. Once we get that feedback, and because these are sketches, it's kind of low stakes, we can kind of iterate on those sketches and get to a good place where we feel like we understand what our customers need from our products. And then we build a little prototype. Again, kind of low stakes, not a lot of development work, but based on what we learned in the sketches, we have a little prototype, and we do the same thing. We get some feedback from our customers, and then we iterate on those little prototypes until we get to the point where we have something that customers love to use. And we don't stop there. Then we ask more questions. We get feedback from that. We plan some new features, and we go through that whole cycle again when we're iterating and sketching and defining that process. So can we design APIs like this? And I think in the GraphQL community, it's pretty clear that we can, because a lot of the talks talk about a closer engagement with the consumer of your API. And so we started to look at this internally and think about, what can we do to bring some attention to the API experience. So we started thinking about using these sort of experience and product design techniques to deliver more delightful APIs. And at Autodesk, we love acronyms, so we call this APIX. It also has an X in it, which is like super cool for us. And so this is really about treating APIs like a product, giving all of the same user experience, love, and attention that we would give any great product, giving that to our APIs as well. So I'm going to dive into a high-level kind of life cycle of one of our API designs to kind of give you a sense of how we inject that into the process. So using this customer-driven approach, we start by engaging with our customers. So just like we did in sort of the high-level UX walkthrough I gave you, talk to our customers. We gather as much information about what they're trying to do as possible in as much detail as we need. We create mock-ups, again, sketches. In our case, those will be schema mock-ups or API mock-ups. We test those mock-ups with our customers. And then we start over again. We just keep iterating and building on that. And so I'll dive into each of these in detail. So we start with a really engaged group of customers. And I say engaged because our customers, as you saw, they do a lot of cool things. They're very, very passionate about what they do, the data they produce, and how to get more of that data. And APIs are super important to them. So we want customers that are really passionate, because we will be meeting with them maybe once a week, maybe twice a month, maybe monthly. And the reason it's important for them to be engaged is they'll build things like this. In one of our GraphQL betas, a customer built this ChatGPT front end for our GraphQL API. And what they're asking here, which is really cool, is they're asking, filter all the girders in this building to ones that can fit on a flatbed truck. Now, what's really cool is we have no data about flatbed trucks, but ChatGPT can make a pretty rough guess because it's ChatGPT, and it uses the GraphQL queries that we provided to actually filter all the girders based on some sizes and things like that. And now, why this is important is customers in these early programs will build these, and we'll be able to actually walk through the way they use that API and understand where their pain points were and what could make that process easier for them. And this is not a one-off. Multiple customers will do very similar things. And of course, it's AI, so I had to sneak it into my talk. Next, we try to engage with our customers and learn about their workflows with an API. So, we use some virtual sticky note tools. How many people have these kind of tools in their organization? Mural, Miro, FigJam, we all have these kinds of things. So we employ these tools to great effect to really walk through with customers, like, what are you trying to do with our APIs? What kind of data are you trying to access? What other APIs are you using? What are the formats of the data, the precision of the data, the units of measure, all these questions. And we really try to capture those workflows. Now, you'll notice these screenshots all look a little bit different, and that's totally fine. We don't have a strict template. We tried, actually. But the reason is because each team is looking for kind of slightly different information when we're making our different APIs. What's important, though, is that we're mapping these out in great detail so that we can understand what can we shorten in that process. What can we reduce and make a query? What can we, what is something we didn't understand, like what other APIs and data formats are they going to need from this API? And we map those out. And again, these take all sorts of different shapes and sizes. It's not important what they look like. It's important that they're really, really detailed so our API teams can design a great API. Finally, we create mockups of the API. So this is, I really like this part because I get to play in GraphQL. But what we do is we set up a server that allows us to quickly iterate on a mock schema. And then and we start small. I think I've heard this at a few talks this week, which is really great, about starting small with a schema. So we start small, very, very high value, high priority data and functionality in our APIs. And we actually make this, we use this tool called GraphQL Faker. You can get on GitHub. We actually make this available to multiple team members so they can actually collaboratively write this schema. And it's, again, super low stakes, right? It's a sketch. We are not precious about this. We're kind of putting some ideas together until we arrive at something that works for us. Now, why we use GraphQL Faker, and here's a quick demo, and I'm probably not going to speak in time with the video. But what GraphQL Faker allows us to do, there it goes, is we can write our schema and test it, test like the query right away. And it returns some mock data, and GraphQL Faker actually allows us to quickly edit the schema. So you'll notice here I'm adding a note field to the to-do type, and then I'm going to jump over and just query that, and it's there. And it shows me that it's a string, which is cool. But what's really powerful about GraphQL Faker for us and our customers is that there are some directives in GraphQL Faker that let me add more realistic fake information. So I have here like a user type. I'm querying users' first name and last name. It's nice that it says string. But what if I could, come in here and say, randomly choose some first names, randomly choose some last names, randomly choose some email addresses? Why this is important is because, again, our customers are super picky, and they want to see realistic information in these sort of mock-ups that we show them. And what I'm not showing you here, but is super powerful for us, is that we actually can provide GraphQL Faker with our own data. So we provide it with arrays of information of that design and make data that our customers create in our products. And that allows our customers to really get engaged and give us some really detailed feedback. So GraphQL Faker, super useful tool for us. OK, so we mocked our API. We've done the workflow bit that led to that. We've engaged with customers. Now we want to actually engage with the customers again to test these mockups. So jumping into our funny design sticky notey tools, we actually paste the GraphQL queries, responses, and parts of the schema into these collaborative tools. And then we invite our customers to totally nitpick them. So what's really fascinating is our customers get really into this. They will draw lines to different fields. They'll ask a bunch of questions. They'll say, why did you do it this way? That's crazy. Or they'll bring up some things maybe we had not thought of or we're not ready to do because there's some underlying services that still need to work for this. So we get a lot of great feedback from them. And we typically do this stuff over Zoom with a handful of people. And what's really important here is that this is not just engineers doing this, right? We have subject matter experts in the room who are not software engineers, but they know construction or they know movie making really well. And they can look at this and ask some serious questions. Because it's GraphQL, it's easy for everybody to really read and understand. And we have our own developer conferences at Autodesk. We run a few of them a year. And we will actually do this in person. So here is a room full of engaged people, although some people have their eyes closed. I promise it was just for a moment that I took the picture. And they will get really, really into looking at sort of our dream queries, right? So we'll have our dream queries up on the wall. We'll have them together sort of adding sticky notes and calling us out for things that don't make sense, asking for different types of data. And again, our customers are super opinionated, which is really good for us. And they take this very, very seriously, and we love that, because customers depend on these APIs for their business, right? This is critical for them, so they are very passionate about this. And it's really hard to see on the middle drawing, there's like a little sketch at the bottom that I found later going back through these photos where a customer actually redrew our entity relationship diagram and was like, this is how it should be. So if you're in a room with Autodesk customers, they will redraw your whole entity relationship. Be careful, but for us, it's a good thing. We like getting that kind of feedback. Okay, so that's very high level, and I've kind of looked at sort of this, let's say this is our like API lifecycle here. We've looked at a couple kind of activities, right? We've done mocking of APIs and reviews of those mocks, the workflow mapping that led to that. But at Autodesk, we actually have a whole bunch of activities that we've created over the last few years of doing this. And we kind of sprinkle them throughout the API lifecycle, and we bring them in at different moments. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to go through all of them. But what I can tell you is they're all really driven by experience design principles. So if you have experienced designers on the team, they're going to know a lot of these processes in the context of UIs. And we are just applying these to APIs. So there's some really interesting processes. I'm going to touch on a couple others, but I'll try to make it quick here. So sometimes you need to understand the kind of structure of your data before you get into schema design. And so we also do object models and data model reviews with our customers. And so, for example, like we might have an ER diagram like this or a similar object model diagram, and customers will just go to town and give you, again, great feedback on this. This allows us, again, before getting into schema design, to kind of check, are we thinking about the data the way our customers think about the data? Now, if it wasn't clear, our GraphQL APIs are public, which means like we don't always have the luxury of saying, this is how we're going to do it internally. We're going to mandate that we all think this way. No, our customers are telling us, like, this is how we structure our data, and this is what we need from you. So we need to really consider our customers in this process. This is also a really great way for us to get feedback on terminology that's being used and other concepts that our customers care about. This is another process. Maybe you don't even have an ER diagram yet. This is a process called OOUX, Object-Oriented UX. You can learn about it at OOUX.com. I'm not affiliated, and it's not a sales pitch, but it's been useful for our teams. But this actually allows people who are not used to ER diagrams, or again, you don't have one yet, to actually start thinking about what are the objects in the system, the nouns, the verbs, what are the attributes of those objects, what are the relationships between those objects. And they have a very clear process, and we can do this, again, with customers who are not engineers, to tell us, like, tell us about what you expect to mine from the gigabytes of data that you're creating and that you need to sift through. So interesting process to check out. And again, some examples of what this might look like when you engage your customers with this process. Again, this is even before schema design, very low stakes, right? Any changes we make here do not take, especially someone like Autodesk, does not take 18 months to make a change here. This happens very quickly. Okay, the last thing I'm going to touch on are usability reviews. So again, pulling from experience design and product design world into API design, we do usability reviews of our APIs. So what we started off with was a set of common experience design principles that we would apply to any software. We've sort of modified them a little bit and sort of applied them to APIs. Is this a supportive API? Does it perform well? Simplicity, familiarity, usefulness, these are all aspects of usability that we've sort of coalesced into this small list. And then what we do is we actually send out some surveys to our customers when they're in those small beta programs or maybe in a public beta program. And even when we go to GA, we'll reach out to customers and actually ask them some pointed questions about their experience with the API and the API documentation. And then we'll turn that into a letter grade. So we actually have a list of letter grades for some of our APIs. I've pixelated the names of the APIs and the teams here to protect the identity of anybody. We're not about naming and shaming here. But what's really fascinating is it makes it really easy to see, oh, okay, we really need to bump up the grade on that one API because we're suffering there. And we can look at the dimensions and understand where do we need work. Is it in the documentation? Is it the API itself that's just not interoperable with other APIs? A lot of things come up here. So this is a really useful metric for us. And we also use it internally. So this is actually an example of an API audit that we did using the same usability principles to discover, whether error handling, terminology, interoperability were covered properly in these APIs. So again, we use this a lot. Okay, so how can you bring this into your organization? How do you bring this kind of product thinking in? Well, I would say start with inviting experience design to the table. Now, maybe you don't have experience designers. That could be in experience design practices. But if you have practitioners, invite them in and have them start to look at where you can apply some of these very traditional product design processes in service of your API. Again, GraphQL seems like a perfect alignment with this. And so there's a really great opportunity to use those customer-centric approaches. Set up things like governance boards and communities of practice. We have a GraphQL governance board. I'm going to name check Dev Dungur, who's right here in the front row, my esteemed colleague, who helped set up our GraphQL governance board. We also have an API experience community of practice at Autodesk. That's starting to grow more and more with engineers and experience designers and product managers. So we have started to kind of build some community around this to help us elevate those principles and those standards. Have standards. So we have our own GraphQL standards that we worked tirelessly on. I'm sure many of you have started documenting your own standards in this way. But it's amazing when you start documenting it, what you learn. People have feedback, and suddenly you're like, oh, I thought naming enums was an easy answer. Not as easy as I thought. So it's good to capture those standards, and the same goes for those API experience principles. So what we've done is we actually have been documenting each of these API experience practices internally, and we have templates and videos that show engineers and product people how to apply these experience design practices in service of their APIs, their schemas, et cetera. So we've started building this out, and actually we actually now have learning paths. So we have a learning path for engineers, for product managers, and for experience designers and content people to learn these processes from their perspective and come in and help design better APIs. So if you have to remember one thing, your API is a product. And treat it like a product by involving product people, experience designers, product managers with real product design experience, and think about the customer centricity that they can bring to your API design products. And so hopefully you don't see comments like this anymore, and maybe you get comments like this.
Autodesk came back with a new approach for an API, and it was based on GraphQL, which is a nice technology in order to get exactly the data you want. It was way closer to a traditional CAT APIs, and it was actually a joy to use. And
did you catch that? It was a joy to use. Like, this was such a great moment for us, right? So we never hear that with our APIs. Yes, that was like the first of many, I hope. But yeah, it's a really great feeling to see people start to fall in love with your API and have fun with it, because that's such an important metric for us. So bring experience practice into the design of your API, involve experience design practices and people if possible, and strive for a joyful experience with your API, as Stefan Sidion, one of our customers, so eloquently stated. Thanks so much.